spoken to several former members who do say this group brainwashes people. They call it a cult. Why do you think that is?
I mean, now it's the 21st century. Why are we talking about cults in America? Why are we talking about this? Then if they label us a cult, every religion has to be a cult. Where is it going to end?
This video is from about a decade ago. It's with Ronan Farrow from NBC and missionary John Powers, who is now Pastor John Powers of the WMSCOG Church of God. In this interview, we can see that the church lies over and over again, and we can see that they've lied to members, especially about lawsuits, especially Michelle Cologne's lawsuit, where they say she sued the church first. But actually, you'll come to find out it is a World Mission Society Church of God. They were the ones that instituted the lawsuit against Michelle Cologne first. There's a lot more to it, and I just want us to get into it.
We've spoken to several former members who do say this group brainwashes people. They call it a cult. Why do you think that is?
Well, again, the word cult, to me, that's very hurtful. For me, this church and what I believe in is my choice. It's what I believe. When they say those things, it's not true. I've been here for 10 years. Nobody is being controlled at all. People can come, they can go. I mean, you can see our church is very open. All of our information is on the website. When we talk to people about the church, we're very transparent, but it's very hurtful when people start saying that this is a cult, that they brainwash. They're not attacking the church, they're attacking what is valuable to me. This is the United States of America. In the United States, we have a choice to believe what we want to believe. I mean, now it's the 21st century. Why are we talking about cults in America? Why are we talking about this? Then if they label us a cult, every religion has to be a cult. Where is it going to end?
The church essentially, it does not believe in cults. If you remember the Put on the Full Armor of God 4, they speak about Hassan, but they're essentially shutting him down or trying to knock him down. They say there's no degree or there's no school in the world that gives you a degree for being a cult expert.
Yeah.
And they say, oh, look, he's just trying to sell his books. In knocking Hassan down, the church essentially exposes itself as being an organization that believes cults don't exist because you can't identify them. You can't point them out. You can't say that there are characteristics for cults. You would just simply have to say, oh, that's a Babylon church. They go to church on Sunday, so that's a Babylon church.
Exactly.
But cults, they effectively say don't exist.
In the United States today, we can't have these conversations about labeling. I thought we were done. It's almost like a form of racism. It's discrimination. People are being discriminated for so many different reasons, but I thought we were finished with all of this. What it's doing is that by saying our church is a cult, we are taking a step back from the progressive direction we are heading as a country. I thought we threw away all the labels, racism and all these other things. But now it's coming up to religion. But in the United States of America, there's a freedom of religion. And who is to say what is a cult, what is not a cult? Nobody can determine that.
Cults don't exist ultimately to the World Mission Society Church of God. They try to discredit anybody that said we're a cult expert or that knows about cults, like Rick Ross, Steve Hassan. They discredit these people saying there's no degree to be a cult expert. They want to discredit somebody. It's because these people like Rick Ross and other cult experts, as we can say, they have actual studies and they have their doctorate degree in these things to find out what's a healthy religion and what's not a healthy religion. But the World Mission Society Church of God doesn't want us to listen to them. They want to discredit them, because if we listen to cult experts, the World Mission Society Church of God will be completely exposed to the world. That's why they have to discredit them. And the World Mission Society Church of God, they live under a bubble of information control. You don't talk to people when they leave the church. You don't talk to people when they transfer to another church. And if they fall away from the church, you definitely don't talk to them. Why? Information control. So they can control the narrative in their little bubble.
I've spoken to, as I said, several former members who use the term brainwashing. And the way one former member described it to me was to allege that there were very, very intense hours of worship, that the church began to control every aspect of this person's personal life, including involvement in their relationships, that there were more and more demands to recruit new members, that there were more and more demands to give money. This former member described members emptying their savings accounts. How do you respond to those kinds of allegations?
Well, first of all, excessive hours of worship, is that what you said? Excessive hours of worship?
As framed by this individual.
Okay. We don't have excessive hours of worship. We are a church. We have 2 days we worship, Saturday and Tuesday.
Yes, you do have intense worships. I don't have a problem with a Tuesday and Saturday worship, but you want people to stay there all day on Saturday. And if you're a leader, you need to be there really early in the morning until really late in the evening. And he didn't even mention the feasts. Let's talk about the feasts, guys. 7 feasts in 3 times. There's 7 annual feasts that we need to keep in order for you to receive salvation. If you miss a feast, and once you've been in a while, you understand if you miss a feast, your salvation is in jeopardy. The grace of Jesus is not here in this church. They determine your salvation based off if you're keeping the law or not. So Jesus' sacrifice is thrown out. And let's talk about your early morning worships and evening worships, worship services during the preaching weeks and then the prayer weeks of the feasts. Literally for almost a week and sometimes 10 days throughout the year, you have to be at the church at 5 in the morning, and then you have to also attend the worship service later that evening at 7:30 or 8 p.m. at night. This happens multiple times during the year. This isn't even biblical, yet this church makes us do this. This really reminds me of sleep deprivation tactics used by nations like North Korea. When you sleep deprive people and then you feed them information, they actually come to believe it more. It's a form of control tactics, and it brainwashes people more and more into this group. And when he mentions about emptying out people's savings, that's what they did to me. I had barely any savings when I left the World Mission. Barely any. I literally had to move in with my parents again and start over after leaving this church because they sucked me dry. I'm not talking about the tithe. If you want to give 10% to the church, that's understandable. I don't have a problem with that because a church has to run. And then they had their Sabbath worship offerings, whatever. I gave it. But when I became a leader in the World Mission Society Church of God, I literally was coerced out of my entire paycheck as an engineer, which is almost well over $100,000. So to say they're not in control of us or in control of our money, this is a lie. And they are in very much control of our relationships. They will tell you you shouldn't date somebody. They will tell you who you should marry or if you shouldn't be married to somebody. They have arranged marriages.
And everybody has given the choice to attend those worships if they want. Each worship is an hour and a half each. And we have 2 days, Tuesday and Saturday. 1 worship on Tuesday and 3 on Saturday.
So stories of people being kept in this church for long nights into the wee hours and left sleep deprived.
Those are totally fabricated. Yeah, sleep deprivation, that is absurd. How do you forcibly deprive somebody of sleep? You know, these are all just fabricated, it's a falsehood.
Totally fabricated. Us staying at the church long hours. Is that what you say? Well, let me tell you, once you're in the church, they move the goalpost multiple times. When you first enter, it's just be baptized and you're saved. Then it's keep the Passover. Then it's keep the Sabbath day. Then it's keep the 3rd day. And now it's like, oh, you need to go preaching. And it's just also like, you need to be at the church every day because you need to be evangelizing people. Because if you don't preach to them, their blood is on your hands. On top of that, when I first came to Oklahoma City, Zion, they were literally staying up until like 1 or 2 in the morning studying the Bible. And I worked in the military at that time. I had to wake up at 4 in the morning. And I was told by the deacon, according to your faith, brother, which is a ridiculous thing to say, because what they actually mean by that is, if you don't stay, you have no faith. But if you do stay, you have faith. So they're kind of putting you in a pretzel and trying to hold you accountable and make you feel terrible if you don't stay at the church.
That's why it's so painful to me. It's so hurtful to me that, as a part of this, is a part of my life of faith. This is my church that I decide to attend. This is what I believe, that people are bringing these kinds of allegations that are totally not true. I mean, if someone felt they're being held against their will here, why didn't they report to the authorities? Why did they just post it on the internet? The reason why they just post on the internet is because they had no evidence that it ever took place, because it didn't take place. If they felt so they're in danger, they should have gone to the police. But they didn't. Why? Because it never happened.
The fact that the church was willing to lie in the past indicates that they are willing to lie in the present, and they're willing to lie in the future. That's why
absolutely.
It's difficult, Adam. It's difficult to believe the church's truth claims.
And what about this allegation from several former members we've spoken to that there are very, very extreme tithing demands, that people are emptying their savings accounts, as they allege?
All the members of the Church of God tithe according to their own faith. They are not required to tithe. They're not required to offer the church. They don't have to offer the church at all to even be a member of the church. If they tithe, it's because they saw the command in the Bible to give a tenth to God. But it's also their choice. We don't force them. We don't marginalize them. We embrace anyone who wants to study God's words in our church. All the members, if they do tithe or if they do offer, it's really out of their own voluntary free will. And me personally, I tithe, I offer to the church because this is what's important to me. I feel so good to support the cause of this church. I do it out of a really sincere heart and out of faith according to the teachings of Christ. But we don't force anybody to do that. And if anybody emptied out their saving account to do that, it wasn't because the church asked them to do that. That is something that they felt they want to do.
And how about in the book of Malachi, when it says, if you don't tithe, you're robbing God? And they use this against people, and they also connect this with the New Covenant Passover, where, again, just like they're moving the goalpost, they first tell you, keep the Passover, eat the bread and wine, receive eternal life. But then later they say, actually, tithing and the New Covenant Passover, they go hand in hand. So actually, if you're not tithing, you're not keeping the order of Melchizedek. In other words, you're not giving a tenth to God. And then, in other words, you can't receive salvation. And it didn't happen during this time when this was made, but definitely in 2020 and kind of after, there was many times where they said, members cannot keep the Passover unless they tithe. What this means is you cannot receive salvation unless you tithe. So he's saying it's according to your own free will. Yeah, it is. Either go to hell or go to heaven. That's what they're telling you. So yeah, your free will. So when you're indoctrinated and you're brainwashed into this place, and if you don't give your tithe, it's ultimately admitting that you're going to hell. So he's right. He's not lying. Yeah, we don't force people into it. Yeah, they're not forced. They're coerced into giving their tithe because their salvation is at stake if they don't give it.
The money that individual members donate to the church, do you know where that money goes? Is that kept within the United States, or is that sent back to Korea?
I'm not entirely sure. Right? I'm not the accountant or anything like that, so honestly, I don't want to say anything that I don't know about.
This part is so concerning to me. Ronan Farrow asked the overseer of the church, I just want you to picture yourself in any church or organization. What if the CEO of a company doesn't know where the money's going? What if a mainstream Christian church isn't forthwith on where the money's being delivered to? A healthy church will show and reveal to the members their financial statements, where the money's going. Is it going to humanitarian work? How much is getting sent to the pastor? So on and so forth. Groups that don't expand and show this to their congregation, it's very concerning to me. And for the overseer to say he doesn't know where the money's going, isn't that uncomfortable, guys? That the overseer of the church is saying, that money you gave us, we don't even know where it goes. So is it going to you, John Powers? Or is it going to Korea? Is it getting sent overseas? Well, I'll tell you a little bit where it goes. Your regular Sabbath offerings, they are kept in the church. And these pay for like the utility bills, the electrical, so on and so forth. But your tithing, this gets packaged up. And for example, in Oklahoma, we collect a tithe, we would bring it to the bank, and each region has its own bank. So Oklahoma would bring it to the bank and it would get sent to our regional church, that is Dallas's bank. They have their own bank account. After that, I don't even know where it goes. But how is it that me as an assistant knows more about where the money goes than the own overseer does? And I want to add on to this. I think it goes to Korea. This is my assumption. It's my thought, because when you look at the Korean churches, they're big, grand, beautiful. They have these massive buildings. Not only that, they pay their construction crew, they pay their landscapers, they pay their media team people. I was told this by the head office, they're paid. So they're getting paid to do the labor and construction. They have beautiful temples in Korea. Yet America, it seems like they buy cheap churches and then they use free labor to develop the churches, and they use our construction crews, our electricians, media people to set up and build this church up to be beautiful. But in America, none of them are paid. They do not pay the construction crew. They do not pay their electricians, drywallers, HVAC people, their media team, none of it. None of them are paid employees by the church, yet they pay them in Korea. So when I think about Oklahoma's IAM, I think they bought it for around $250,000 roughly. And since then, they've used free labor to build it up a lot. Members have offered a lot for a lot of the material to build the church, not all of it, but a lot of it. And then they use free labor. And when we look at the market value for the church in Oklahoma, it's probably exponentially worth a lot more than when they first bought it. It really seems like a big real estate scheme, a real estate empire that they're trying to develop through free labor in America and build up their empire in Korea more. This is my opinion and my thought, but it just disgusts me, honestly, how the own overseer of a church doesn't even know where the money's going. And if your own overseer is a leader of a church doesn't know where it's going, probably shouldn't be giving your money to that church. Another thing here, he says, I'm not the accountant. Well, you're the one that put the accountants in place. And I know for a fact the overseer knows how much is coming in and coming out for sure. And this is scary because how do you know the accountants aren't taking the money or somebody's taking the money? Because if the overseer isn't overseeing the church and you don't know where the money's going, somebody could be stealing the money.
So what is your message to individuals who have left this church and say these things that we've been talking about? What do you have to say to those former members?
I would say, why not have an open discussion about this with us? If you felt like any harm was done or if you felt a certain way, why not just talk about this with us instead of just saying all this stuff on the internet and just making all these claims and allegations. To me, that's very painful.
This irritates me as well. Guys, this video is just full of lies. At this time, it was missionary, but Pastor John Powers is literally saying, why don't we have an open discussion, former members? Why don't we just talk about this? We can just talk about it and work it through. How about Adam Egger, Great Light Studios? How many times on YouTube have they asked you guys to come on and share your guys' side? The truth has nothing to hide.
So my point is we're out there literally asking for a conversation and not a peep. Nothing. Just ignore, shun. Like, you guys say you don't do these things. We're not a cult. We don't shun people. We're not afraid of opposition. We're not afraid of slanderers. We're not afraid of ex-members. We're not afraid of facts, information. Please explain to me how that doesn't prove me right in everything that I've said. But yet you're afraid of a few people outside that are literally asking for a conversation, pull the blinds down, lock the doors, all the blinds. Like, I've never even seen so many blinds down in that place. That's the truth? That's your best church on earth? That's your Christianity, the truth restored?
My one thing is, Jordan, you had given an invitation for any of them who listen to this to be able to respond, but honestly, they don't. They won't. The thing that they will do, they will take clips out of context, break it down, and then give their spin on it. That's the best that they will do for a response. They'll never come to you and tell you, this is how we're countering your argument. They'll only do it to the members, give them a little bit so they think that they know what this video is about. They did it when it came to that special that was on featuring one of the missionaries and her family on, I believe it was like NBC. And they spoke about Michelle on that one as well. You know, they say that they're showing you the full context of the interview, but then they'll cut things out of that interview as well about who sued who. Like, there's a lot of things that they will do. They'll manipulate it and make you think that they're showing you the information about what's out there, but they'll cut it up and only show the members what they want them to see. So the members think, I don't need to watch this video. I know what it's about. And I already, like, they're built up with these arguments in their head, so they can't listen to it in full context. So, but I think that's really a dirty trick. I think that they should be able to stand up for what they believe in, come on here and have a conversation with you. I would really like to see like just a regular conversation, but they know that their doctrine is so shoddy that it wouldn't be able to stand if they did come on here.
The truth has nothing to hide. This truth can stand up to all scrutiny. But the reason you guys don't want to debate, the reason you guys don't want to share your opinion on any other platform, or even have this discussion or dialogue with people, is because you know you will be exposed. And an overseer can't even do that out of his free will. He has to ask the Koreans over in Korea if he can actually do this, or do something like that. And this disgusts me because there's so many people. Adam has asked overseer, Edgar, Jordan, I mean, the list goes on. So many people have asked, let's sit down, let's talk about it, let's work this through. Let me go to your church, let me give my side of the story, you give your side, and then the congregation can make up their mind about stuff. Even the Jehovah's Witnesses, who are considered a cult, the LDS Church, who is considered a cult, are they scared of debates? No. There's many YouTube videos of Jehovah's Witnesses, LDS Mormons, going on platforms and defending their faith because they think it's true. But this church is so scared of getting exposed, they won't do it. So to say that, why don't we have an open discussion? Yeah, why don't we? Pastor John Powers, I invite you personally onto my channel. I'll even fly out to Chicago, meet with you, and let's sit down, let's talk in front of the congregation, let's explain, let's have a debate, let's go through this stuff. But they won't do it, guys. They're just full of lies.
And for someone who says, as one former member told me, I spent some time in this group, it ruined my life, it destroyed my relationships. What do you say to that?
Well, the church, we've heard those allegations. The church doesn't ruin relationships. We don't teach people to depart from their families. We don't teach people to estrange themselves from their families, or estrange themselves from family or from friends. I would say that is also a false allegation.
Bull crap. All right, guys. This is it for part 1. I'll drop part 2 soon. Yeah.